Hello, we're live. Yes, excellent. Welcome everyone to this afternoon's session. So there's a few things we're going to be doing today. So the first is we've got a Meet the RSE Fellows session, and then following that we have the launch of the elections. So we're going to dive straight in, I think, into this first session of kind of meeting the fellows. Yeah, no, I'm just going to wait for a moment just for some something to appear on the screen. We should be seeing the Slido at the moment. Yes, excellent. Right. So first thing to say is for this first session, then it's going to be interactive. We're going to hear some talks in a moment, but in the meantime, if you have questions for the new fellows, then please join Slido and start posting those straight away. We can get a nice little kind of bank of those in advance before we kind of whilst we're hearing from the fellows. Sorry, so if you have questions that come up while you're listening, then please put them on Slido straight away. The other thing is we're going to be hearing from Sarah King at EPSRC about the new open fellowship format, and again we'll do that before we move on to the Slido Q&A. So I think we'll start then by moving on well, in fact, I'll introduce myself first because I should. So, and introduce this session. So why this session? Well, the idea of this session is really so that people can learn about the new fellows, find out what they're doing, find out how you can work with them, find out about the initiatives that they're kind of taking part in, and how it may have an impact on the community and RSE's within our kind of community, I guess. So I guess the other thing is we want to understand and hopefully share some experience about what applying for a fellowship is like, right? Because it's a new experience for many people, and the fellows are in a unique position now to share what that is, you know, all the way from kind of the conception of here's an idea of something that I'd like to do, all the way through to the award stage. And some of those fellows I think will be starting very, very soon, if not already started. So as a current I guess I'm still a current RSE fellow. So my fellowship ends in September. It's been extended slightly because I took some parental leave. So being an existing fellow, I was really keen to chair this session because it's been transformative for myself. And I'll introduce myself and a little bit about why that is now. So it's really because it's given me kind of like an opportunity. So my background was really a software engineer pretending to be a researcher, very familiar with a lot of people. The fellowship was really an acknowledgement that I could first and foremost be an RSE rather than an academic. And I am still an academic, but I'm an academic after I am an RSE. So it's really given me an opportunity to bend and shape the academic environment to fit with what I'm doing rather than the other way around. It's really been quite transformative. You know, it's been transformative for me, but more importantly, it's been transformative for the rest of my team, some of which have moved on now. And I'm fortunate that I've still got a very good team at Sheffield. We're about 14 strong. It's been transformative in terms of what they do. It's been transformative in terms of the people that I collaborate with and that they collaborate with. And we're active on 40 projects across the university at the moment. And also it's been transformative on the software that I've written, and increasingly the software that I oversee as I do kind of slightly more managerial work these days. Since I kind of got involved in having a fellowship, I kind of took on and put myself forwards to become a trustee of the society, and the fellowship again has given me a good platform to do that. And that again has taught me a huge amount about the RSE community, both just being a trustee and then following on as kind of president. So I'm extremely pleased to see a new round of RSE fellows, particularly with such a diverse set of skills and backgrounds. And it's a real pleasure to welcome you all here today. And I know I've already congratulated you kind of individually and by email, but I just want to congratulate you again on your success. There's some additional fellows that are not presenting today, and I want to just kind of welcome them as well and congratulate them as well. I think what we'll do now is kind of move on and let the fellows introduce themselves. So they've all been asked to kind of prepare about 2 minutes just to introduce themselves. And I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of shout out names and ask you to begin if that's okay. So how about Thomas Dorick first from UCL?
Hi everyone. Yes, my name's Tom. I'm at UCL. I started my fellowship officially last month, into my second month now. And before that, I've been at UCL for 7 or 8 years now, working on software and hardware development for a range of medical imaging and medical device projects. My fellowship itself is looking at RSE for medical devices and more specifically image-guided surgery, which is any kind of surgical procedure where the clinician will have additional information such as video or MRI guiding them as they do the procedure. Within my fellowship, there's a few different areas I'm going to be working on. So firstly, most researchers in the area are looking at some kind of AI applications, but because medical imaging is a relatively specialist area, most people don't have enough data for their AI applications. So I'm looking at a simulation platform using Unity. Sorry, I'll just... Yes, I'm looking at a simulation platform using Unity to do video and then later on multimodal video. I'm not, my video is not working, unfortunately, so it's off. Sorry. So I'm looking at a simulation platform in Unity for data simulation. I'm also looking at ways of making sure that people can access the latest algorithms and systems they need from within the operating theatre. Because typically, if you go to an OR, you don't have access to particularly high-end computers, so I'm looking at some kind of like cloud-based solution for that. And then finally, and perhaps one of the most important areas, I'm working with specific clinical projects to make sure that clinicians and research teams have the RSE input that they need in order to get their project through. Because if you're making a medical device, and there's a question from Paul, which I'll come to after everyone's spoken. If you're making a medical device, then you have to get it regulated, and if your software hasn't been well maintained and well written, then you're unlikely to be able to get your device through medical regulation. So hopefully by working with clinical teams and stressing the importance of RSE from the very beginning, it will make these translational projects much more likely to come through to clinical benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. So I'm going to move over next to Heather Turner from Warwick.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm starting the RSE Fellowship, having spent about 10 years outside academia, perhaps a bit different from other people. So during that time, I started doing more and more work, mostly voluntary, within the R community. And the RSE Fellowship gives me the opportunity to really focus on that. So in my fellowship, I'm going to be working on the 2 issues of sustainability and equality, diversity and inclusion in the R project. So these are 2 big issues for research software in general, but they're particularly acute when it comes to core development teams of large research software projects such as the R project. So I'm going to be working on this issue by trying to build up my own contributions, but also engaging in a range of outreach activities, such as improving documentation, mentoring contributors, and organising developer events. I think research software engineers are quite underestimated in this space, and there's a lot of potential for RSEs to get involved in core contribution, both through code and through outreach activities. My fellowship is going to be based in the statistics department at the University of Warwick. So I'm also going to be supporting the development of research software within the department, including working on my own statistical modelling packages. And I'm also going to be helping to support researchers using R and other software for data science across the university in partnership with other RSEs, particularly in what's called the Scientific Computing Research Technology Platform, which is the central RSE team at Warwick.
Thank you so much, Heather. So I'm going to move on now to Donal Colin at QUB, Queen's University Belfast. Did I say that right?
You did, yes. I actually I have it on the slide as well, just for anyone to see. I'd uploaded the slides there. Do I need to share my screen, or are they going to be shared for me?
Yeah, could you share your screen, please?
Sure. All right, can you see that okay?
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm Donal Colin. Donal's a difficult name even for people from Ireland. I was awarded this year's EPSRC RSE Fellowship. Prior to that, I was a research fellow for 3 years at the Centre for Secure Information Technologies in Queen's University, Belfast. That's where I did my PhD. Prior to that, so I've got a bit of a different background. I actually got into software development through a conversion master's in 2014. My undergrad back in 2002 was in applied psychology. So the gap in between those years, I spent a long time managing bars, restaurants, breweries. So I have a bit of a diverse background that one recruiter said was the most bizarre CV he has read. I thought to show my slide, I might as well use the same slide. We're all about reusing code, so I thought I'd reuse slides. This is the slide I used for my fellowship interview, just to kind of explain just an overview. And I tied this to the 4 criteria for the fellowship. So my fellowship, the research aspect, the computational research aspect, will provide direct RSE support for 5 cybersecurity research projects. And the key one for this that I'll have a PhD student on is novel IoT research. So processor level intelligence that's fed to machine learning to tell whether an IoT, consumer IoT device is malfunctioning, being hacked or whatever. This will form part of a big kind of consumer IoT device lab, and we'll provide key open data sets and infrastructure for other people to use. And one of the problems with cybersecurity research is that there isn't a great deal of data that people are willing to share. So this will provide open data for other researchers. And this will be in conjunction with key industrial partners. So I was lucky to get letters of support from NVIDIA, Thales, and ARM. I also provide focused software engineering training across faculties. And what we found is a lot of other faculties within Queen's, researchers are expected to develop code, but have no software development experience or training, and we'll be providing this sort of training across the university. One of the strengths of, I think, my application was that there is no RSE chapter in Northern Ireland. And this will hopefully, in conjunction with Andrew, who also is from Queen's and awarded a fellowship, will launch the first RSE chapter in Northern Ireland. And this will lead to a permanent RSE role within CSIT and eventually towards RSE as a service kind of cluster within Queen's that we're going to try and advocate for. So that's my talk.
Thank you very much, Donald. So next we have Peter Hill from York.
Hello, yeah, I'm Peter Hill and I'm a research software engineer, surprisingly, at York, where I'm embedded in the York Plasma Institute, and there I'm a maintainer of a couple of big for plasma simulation packages and have my finger in lots of other pies, lots of other small bits. My main interests at the moment, I think, like a lot of the other RSE fellows, are in software sustainability and in the FAIR principles for code and data. And if you're not aware of what they are, they're namely that the code and data should be findable by searching for them with keywords. They should be accessible. You should be able to get hold of them. They should be interoperable in that they should work with other common programs and file formats. And they should be reusable in that other people should be able to build on top of existing research. So my ambition for my fellowship is to catalyze a cultural change in the plasma science community towards embracing those principles as core values. So one of the things is that I was getting a bit sick of reading papers that described software or used software and not being able to easily get hold of that software to like see what it looked like. Does it have tests? Is this actually something I should be trusting? And I want to change that. And so I want to do that by building a network of RSEs who can make meaningful sustainability improvements to basically as much software as we can get our hands on. I want to do 100 to 200 software packages in the 5 years. The idea of that is that as well as like talking to people and teaching people particular skills, I think directly demonstrating the benefits of RSE, that is better methods of developing software, better methods of using software in research, is like a really effective way of reaching people and bringing them over. So not just telling them, but showing them how to do it ourselves. So, and then the other bit is that I also want to develop tools that can make it easier to share data in a fairer way, basically trying to really cut down the number of clicks researchers need to do between running a simulation and getting the data on Synodo. So,
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Now we'll go to Andrew Brown, also from Queen's University Belfast.
Hi, folks, and thanks, Paul. This is the second time I've done an introduction and had to follow Peter, which is very useful because my fellowship is quite similar to Peter's. So my background is in theoretical atomic, molecular, and optical physics, or AMO physics for short. And my fellowship is sort of addressing the software ecosystem that's been developed mostly here in Belfast, actually, for doing AMO physics research. Unlike Peter's fellowship, I'm not addressing hundreds of packages. There are sort of 4 or 5, which are the sort of the biggest packages for doing multi-electron laser matter interaction. But because the software has been developed really over the last 60 years, there's a lot of work to be done addressing the actual source code itself. So the early technical part of my fellowship will be to sort of refactor and modernize a lot of that code base. But in the later part of the fellowship, what I'm really going to be aiming for is making the codes a lot more accessible. So at the minute, in order to be able to use this software, you have to be an HPC specialist and a real specialist in the particular nuances of the theory at all levels of the software stack. And that makes it very opaque for newcomers. So I'll be developing an API, which should allow more people to use the software. I just wanted to pick up on a point which isn't sort of about what I'm doing with my fellowship, but something from this morning's session. One of the stories that Vanessa talked about was this story that you're too old to start something new with research software engineering. I don't feel particularly old, but comparatively, I'm reasonably well established in academia. I've had a permanent position for nearly 10 years now. And when I applied for this research software engineering fellowship, I faced like quite serious pushback from a lot of people in my department who saw it as a step backwards. And they were sort of pushing me to try and think about sort of more sort of traditional science funding and trying to establish myself more in the science sphere. Now, my pushback to that then was that I didn't think the science was going to go anywhere unless we addressed some of the looming problems in the software. And as it turns out, when you get a fellowship, they're all a lot friendlier towards you than they were when you were just talking about applying for it. So just an encouragement to anyone out there. As you can tell already, there's a great diversity of people who've obtained these fellowships. And so if you sort of face that kind of pressure from people in your department, just to know that the EPSRC and others are putting money behind this kind of longer term thinking. This kind of investment in research software engineering is really encouraging. And thanks, that's my 2 minutes.
Thanks, Andrew. So that's a great bit of insight already. So Ed Bennett from Swansea.
Hi, yes, I'm Ed Bennett. So for the last couple of years, I've been working on the Supercomputing Wales project at Swansea University, and that's been focusing on HPC. And before that, I was research active doing research in computational particle physics. So my fellowship is currently the only one, hopefully not the only one, but at least the first one to be funded by STFC rather than by EPSRC. And so I'm doing STFC facing science. And so yeah, it's focusing on some of the stuff I was doing during my PhD and subsequent research around lattice field theory, where that's a massive consumer of HPC resource and has had a lot of RSE effort on the HPC efficiency side, but there's been less focus on what happens to the data once it gets off there. So very similar to a couple of the other speakers, it's focusing on fair data and fair data analysis tooling. So the first stage of that's going to be just defining what that could look like. That's a kind of set of best practices, or at least good enough practices that the community can agree is a good idea, and then developing tools that make it easier to do that. Because I've tried to implement some of that in my own research, and it's actually more time consuming than I thought it would be, because just the underlying tooling isn't there, or at least if it's there, it isn't opinionated enough to get started with very quickly. I'm also got a couple of other side projects working with LIGO and Cardiff University on some of their analysis of gravitational waves to try and improve the computational efficiency of that, and also with University Aberystwyth looking at some of the efficiency and reusability of some of their software for solar system physics, analysing our sun and its the physics of that as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next few years.
Thank you very much, Ed. And then last but not least, assuming I haven't forgotten anyone, which I don't think I have, is James Knight from Sussex.
Thanks, Paul. Can you see me actually?
Yeah, I can see you.
Excellent. I'm just also can't use Zoom. Hey, as Paul said, I'm Jamie. I'm from Sussex, and my fellowship is mostly going to focus on spiking neural networks. So these are kind of a step closer to the brain than the current deep networks that are very, very common. And the main way they step closer is that they use, instead of neurons continuously exchanging real valued rates, these neurons exchange spikes, which are just sparse binary activations. And these are sparse in time and space, which means that potentially if you can write suitable hardware and write suitable software and have suitable hardware to harness this, then you can make massive computational savings, because you're not having to do all these dense matrix multipliers all the time. Instead, you're sort of more summing up these events. So the problem here is that although there's lots of new exciting ideas in machine learning using these networks, there's not really any suitable tools. Most of the tools are designed for computational neuroscience, which is basically brain simulation, which is very different in terms of the sort of abstractions people use and even the vocabulary they use in their tools to machine learning. So in this project, I'm going to be working to try and change this, make a new cutting edge tool to sort of unlock the potential of these spiking networks for machine learning research. And along with that, I'm going to be the first person with RSE job title at Sussex. So I'm really working to kind of build an RSE community there. There is sort of promise from the leadership at the university that they want to establish an RSE group. So I'm going to be kind of making sure they actually live up to that. And also in the shorter term, working to build a community amongst all the people who are already writing software. And also to sort of to work with the GPU bootcamp initiatives and the software carpentry to run suitable training for staff, PhD students, anyone else who's interested. I think that's about my 2 minutes. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much, Jamie. So I'm going to move over now to Sarah King, who's going to give us a quick introduction to the open fellowship format. Whoever's sharing the screen at the moment. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. So hopefully this will work. Right, that looks like it's working. Are you there, Sarah?
Yep, that's great. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Paul.
so
we can probably skip that one because I think we know who we're. Oh, hang on.
Oh, hang on, no.
Come back off again.
Let's see.
Yeah, just so as quick while Paul's doing that, as quick introduction. Yeah, I'm Sarah King, portfolio manager in research infrastructure within EPSRC. Do you want to go next slide, please, Paul? Okay, right. What I've included in our, I know this was supposed to just be the open fellowships, but what I thought would be useful for, depending on who is in the audience, is to tell you about the complete EPSRC fellowship framework. We're still looking at outstanding research. We're looking to develop people's careers. We're also looking at changing research culture. There are two strands to our fellowship offerings. There is the postdoctoral, which is a three-year fellowship. The difference between that and the open fellowships is, one, it's only 3 years, and two, it's only open to specific EPSRC themes. The open fellowships is a 5-year project. It covers any research area, any career change after postdoc. They're open all year, and they also it also includes this optional plus element, which I will cover in a later slide. Okay, keep going, Paul. Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, so the postdoctoral fellowships are only available in the mathematical sciences, energy, and synthetic biology themes, whereas open fellowships are available across all of EPSRC's remit. All fellowships have a focus on discovery science, innovation, instrument technique development, or software engineering. Okay, next slide, please. The Open Fellowships Framework, it's been updated to provide an increased opportunity at early career stage onwards. There is a highlight, a change from sort of like previous offerings in that we continue to highlight innovation, but also included is instrument technique and development, and also software engineering, which is where the RSEs come in. There is the freedom to pursue non-technical elements to influence community change, and we are also we've also adopted the narrative CV to enable a much more inclusive assessment of many of the rich and varied career paths, which you've already just heard about from our new fellows. Okay, next slide, please, Paul. So with these areas, what do the areas of focus mean? Discovery science is basically what we've always done. Innovation, looking for collaborative engagement with public, private or third sector organizations. Instrument technique development or software engineering. This is the bit that's quite new. We're going to look at supporting and expanding technologies and techniques to further both academic and industrial research capabilities. And we do ask that applicants identify the areas their proposal will focus on within their application form. Okay, next slide, please, Paul. In terms of eligibility, applicants are expected to hold a PhD or have equivalent research experience. I apologise in advance. We have never defined equivalent research experience. If there are any questions, please do contact EPSRC and we will try and help you on that. There are no rules about postdoctoral experience. Applicants don't need to hold a permanent academic position, but you do need a host organisation to support you. And we very much welcome applications from candidates who want to move back into research after any type of career break from active research. Okay, next slide, please. So the open fellowships, who is it suitable for? It's suitable for applicants who are close to obtaining their first academic appointment, leading in an area of technical development, or a highly experienced researcher, or at any stage in between, if they can demonstrate that they have acquired the skills and expertise to successfully deliver their research proposal. They're committed to implementing good practice in creating a modern and inclusive research environment. They will be an advocate for EPSRC and will influence policymakers and other stakeholders on the importance of their research area. And they've identified areas for continued research and professional development, which will enable them to expand or enhance their role and career. Next slide, please. In terms of this new thing, this open fellowship component, this is something that you can add on to a fellowship application. It's called an optional plus. You can use this component to spend 20 to 50% of your time on the fellowship to create positive change in the research community, champion an area or topic aligned to EPSRC's aspirations to deliver improvements in cultural change. Next slide, please, Paul. So to apply for an open fellowship, what we're looking for applicants to do is to justify how their fellowship would add value to their career beyond other funding routes available. You are encouraged to look at all the funding routes that are available within, say, UKRI, for example. But this is what we would like you to do within a fellow, if you're going for a fellowship, is to explain how it will add value to your career. Applicants will be assessed relative to their career stage at the interview panel. Okay, next slide, please, Paul. Okay, this is just a table that shows the differences. The main differences between the postdoctoral and open is the time difference, 3 years versus 5 years. The postdoctoral, you can't have additional research staff on your fellowship, but you can with the open fellowship. Equipment, you're limited to 10,000 on a postdoc, whereas you can have equipment, again, in line with current EPSRC guidelines on equipment for your open fellowship. You can't have time and resources to address community issues on a postdoc, but you can with the open fellowship, only with a plus component. Next slide, please, Paul. Yeah, this is just basically what we expect of the host organization. We do expect your organisation to support you. We ask that they take ownership for pre-selecting candidates using the assessment criteria and guidance, and that they afford the fellows equivalent status to academic staff. We expect them to give you adequate provisions in terms of office and lab space, suitable mentoring opportunities, and we expect them to support the applicant's programme of research and engagement, and also look for suitable career development opportunities, not limited to formal training, to expand skills and enhance development. The route to a fellowship is you put your proposal in, it goes through the portfolio management manager system, it goes to postal peer review, you get the opportunity to put a PI response, it goes to a panel. That panel is, it produces a rank ordered list. From that rank ordered list, the candidates are selected for interview, again, rank ordered. The theme budget holder will then decide how far down that list of their funding will take them. Okay, so I've got questions there, but we can use those afterwards. And I've added useful links as well at the end. I will, Paul, if we can put these slides on your Google Docs, so people have got can see them.
I'll make sure they get uploaded. And if you've got questions, can you please put those straight onto Slido, and we'll take them as they kind of come. So with that in mind, I think we will now have a look at Slido, where we've hopefully got a fantastic set of questions appearing. Bear with me whilst I just open that up myself. Okay, yes, we do. So I'm going to start then with the top question, which is what fellowship opportunities will exist for RSEs outside of EPSRC remit? So Sarah, I think that's probably one that you would be well placed there.
Back to me, yeah. At this moment in time, EPSRC is the only council, with the exception of STFC, who are offering research software engineering fellowships. However, there is something that is a UKRI-wide strategy, which is the Digital Research Infrastructure Strategy, which is looking, it has an entire theme around skills and career progression. That is a work in progress. There are no specifics in there at this moment, but that is possibly somewhere to look in the future. That is UKRI-wide.
Okay, thank you very much. So next, all of the fellowships seem quite focused on one particular research area. Does being more of a generalist RSE not lend itself to becoming a fellow? So I think, how should we do this? So panelists, if you strongly want to kind of answer this question, could you perhaps kind of put your hand up, and I'll kind of pass over to you. If you have a strong desire to answer a particular question, please do that. Otherwise, I will just kind of start jumping on people and asking you for your opinion. So Tom, yes.
Hi, yeah, I think I'll have a go at this one. So I think it's not necessarily the case that you couldn't be a generalist, but I think possibly because this has been the third round of applications, it's more difficult. You perhaps have to specialize a bit more, because just saying RSE is needed in my institution and I'm going to go and do it that's like, for example, at UCL there's already an RSE team, and then lots of universities already have an RSE team. So I think if you're somewhere where there already is an RSE group, you kind of have to have at least something to differentiate yourself from what they're doing, I would say.
So Andrew, you've in fact kind of expanded your remit beyond just kind of your previous experience in No, in fact, no. I'm thinking of Ed actually. Sorry, Ed. You've expanded your kind of experience, right, from beyond kind of lattice field theory into covering much broader remit of STFC stuff. So how have you gone about demonstrating kind of leadership then, rather than being in one particular area?
Yeah, so I think going into the application process, I thought that since STFC only had funding for one fellowship, then if I was going to focus solely on one area, then it wouldn't be a very attractive application. So it's one corner of the STFC science community. So I tried to look more broadly at areas I already had a connection with. So both Cardiff and Aberystwyth are part of the Supercomputing Wales collaboration. And so I was already in touch with the researchers at those institutions who were doing that research. And so I just got in touch and said, in your STFC facing science, what problems are you having? And I then, out of what I got back, I picked out things that were kind of aligned with my skill set. So I was looking to move into more of this fair data and fair reproducible analysis, but my background is more in performance software. So when they said we have some performance issues, like, okay, there's a contribution that I can make here without splitting my time too much away from the main project in lattice field theory, which is probably going to take up the bulk of my time over the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you very much. So Dom and Andrew, I'm not going to jump on you for this question. So hands down, and we'll move on to the next one. But I promise you will get a chance to speak. So the next question then is: academic fellowships are a gateway to larger grants, permanent positions. What post-RSE fellowship opportunities are there, and what are the fellows' long-term plans? So who would like to have a little go at that? Heather, I'd be particularly keen to hear from you, actually, because you've obviously come from working in industry to being back into a university environment. And does it seem like somewhere that you want to stay? Does it feel like somewhere that will accommodate you?
Well, yeah, I hope so. The long-term plan for me is to stay as a research software engineer in the statistics department. I mean, I was lucky in that they were already in a position of wanting to have a research software engineer in the department to help support them, and that's sort of part of their longer-term strategy. So hopefully that will come about. It's not, at the moment I'm still just on a fixed term contract for the fellowship, but that is the longer term plan, that there'll be space within the department still.
So Jamie, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in terms of post RSE fellowship options, at least in the round that we won, I guess. One of the requirements of the host was that they would offer you a route to a permanent position. So the part of the host support that's required in the scheme, like Future Leaders and other fellowships, is that there is a route to a permanent position. In my case, I would like to sort of remain an academic, but focusing on research software engineering and the kind of issues I talked about in my my summary.
Yeah, so I think we'll hear from a few more people about this, about what that looks like, what the follow-on plan looks like, because I know that everyone's thought about it as part of that kind of institutional support. So, Donal?
Yeah, that was one of the key parts of my proposal, and that Queen's didn't have any RSE kind of infrastructure, and is one of the few kind of research-intensive universities that didn't have it. So that's kind of my long-term thing. So I was trying to think 5 to 10 years after the fellowship, that there will be RSE as a service almost within the university, that engineers can have their time costed out to grants. We're lucky enough to have that kind of thing within CSIT, but at a higher kind of technology readiness level. And this would be kind of more towards the kind of research end. So the idea is that there's this kind of cluster, and if I'm the first or kind of joint first RSE within the university, then we kind of can start the recruitment process after that. Is the kind of 5 to 10 year sort of plan. But I wouldn't have plans for for myself applying for academic grants, but it's being costed in the academic grants.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next question, because it's directed at Peter, this one. So would it make sense to start higher up the pipe, perhaps have researchers reach out to RSEs to assist with making software fair before public?
Yeah, so I think for my plans in particular, I want to do like a sort of push and pull model, that I want to have some sort of like application process that the researchers can reach out to RSEs and say, hey, I've got this software, I would like to make it better. Can you help? But also, I think it's useful to go the other way around, because a surprising number of researchers that I've spoken to already didn't realize that they had RSE teams and pools available at their own institutions. So I think going out and talking to people and saying, hey, did you know RSE is a thing, and that you could pay people to do this thing for you? You can put RSEs on grants. I think that's a really useful thing to do, to like let people know that this is a thing and they can get money to do it. But also the other way around of having that sort of pull thing of having researchers reach out to RSEs, I think is really important.
Okay, excellent. So next question then. Is there a need to run the RSE Fellowship Scheme again now that the open fellowships exist? So Sarah, I'm going to ask you about that first, but I'd like to get the opinion of some of the fellows as well. So Sarah.
Yeah, the idea is not to run the RSE Fellowship Scheme again and to morph the RSE Fellowship into the standard EPSRC Open Fellowship opportunity. The reason being that the Open Fellowships is continually open. The RSE Fellowship was, because of the way the budgets run, research infrastructure were only able to fund it every 3 years or so, which means you've got, there is a limited time, a limited sort of like time that you can actually put your application in. It makes sense to have it as the rest of the fellowships within EPSRC as an open opportunity.
So do any of the current fellows have any kind of thoughts or views on that? I have one. So do you foresee any kind of any implications of that really then, Sarah? So with it moving to an open fellowship format, presumably the guidelines around how it will be assessed will be kind of much more general. Obviously with the RSE fellowships, I know because I've been on the panel of one of them, as well as being awarded. I was on the panel for the second round, and it was assessed very much around the RSE contribution. Presumably the guidelines around assessment have had to change for the open fellowships to make sure that it's not just recognizing research, but recognizing this kind of facilitation science and discovery science.
Yeah, the assessment criteria will be different to a standard research fellowship. It's in a way it's similar to the sort of like the research technical professionals, where they are developing sort of like instruments and things like that. The RSEs are going to be very much like that. There will be assessment criteria that are more attuned to those applicants.
And in the same way then, the RSE community has obviously got involved with the previous RSE fellowships. What do the RSE community need to do to make sure that the EPSRC are supported in making sure the open fellowships are a success?
I think just keep on supporting, how you've supported us, well, certainly myself over the past sort of like 18 months.
Does being on the EPSRC college have any significance with respect to reviewing the open fellowships?
That's actually a good point. Again, I would like to do a plug for our EPSRC college. We need more computational scientists, we need more reviewers on potential panel members with computational science expertise on our college, because what happens at the moment, we have limited number and we just keep going to the same people all the time. If we can grow that community, again, it will make the panel members on the prioritization panels more in tune with the applications that are coming through.
Okay, excellent. Right then, so we'll move on to the next question then, which is what percentage of open fellowships are likely to go to RSEs? Presumably we'll be competing with potential fellows from many other areas. So again, that's coming to you, Sarah.
I really couldn't answer that question. We're still in the...
It's difficult to know really until we start to get applications through for those, right?
Yeah.
And I would expect that the society will continue to engage with you to feedback to the community about the success of that, and I think the society will be very happy to do so.
Well, yeah, and also I think we also, as you were aware, that when any new opportunity is laid out, there are potential sort of like issues and things like that we need to be made aware of, that may be causing an issue, and that we have the opportunity to either restructure or change to make sure that, you know, we are not disadvantaged, that people that say RSEs or RTPs or whatever are not being disadvantaged by being in this open fellowship scheme.
Okay, so next question then, how do you prepare for a fellowship interview? So I'm going to ask Andrew that. It was anything like me, it was walking up and down a hotel corridor very nervously, reciting my pitch for about an hour before it started.
Well, there is that aspect to it, certainly. So part of the interview is you go sort of get a 5-minute pitch to sort of sell your idea. So having that well practiced and well within the time limit as well is obviously very important. Myself and Donal were very fortunate that Queen's, where we're both based, put a lot of effort into preparing us. So we had a lot, well, I maybe I'll not speak for Donal, but I had a lot of assistance from other people because I was sort of moving into the field from I hadn't been in research software engineering before. I got some help from software engineers and sort of review the technical aspects of the written proposal. And then when it came to the interview itself, we did 2 practice interviews just with a sort of selection of academics from across different schools within the Faculty of Engineering and Physical Sciences. And what was so good about that is that the questions were just wildly different from what I was expecting. You know, right the way from sort of really technical questions about some of the software considerations all the way up to the questions about equality, diversity, and inclusion, and all that kind of thing. And then when it came to the interview, the questions that I got were different again. So, but I think just having, you know, that experience of thinking on your feet and being able to sort of sell your vision and answer all kinds of different questions is key. So that point, just quite generally, I think if you're going to be bringing money into an institution as part of a fellowship, they should be keen to support you in that application. And the support that we got was fantastic. And I'm sure the same is true across all of the different institutions. So sort of make sure you seek out that kind of whatever support is available there, because it's very useful.
Okay, so Peter, you've had your hand up patiently.
Yeah, basically the same process that Andrew's just described, but I just want to say that in the practice interviews, it was, the thing that I found really helpful was that they were hard. Like they were not going, like they're people that I work with and that I know quite well, but like the head of department, we had Phil Hasnip, who's another RSE fellow at York, and some other people that you know, they didn't go easy on me, and that was really useful to prepare for tough questions. Like in my pitch, they just had, well, that's, what are you going to do with that? That seems not stupid, but you know, like, so that having people that can be
give you a hard time and kind of really make you think. Yeah,
collegially, you know. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question then, which is, did current fellows need to go through an internal selection process at the host institution before applying for the fellowship with UKRI? If so, how was this? So Tom, you've got your hand up. Yes.
Yeah, so I certainly did at UCL. I guess most places probably did because they could only put 2 forward. It was, I guess they just asked for a shortened version of your outline proposal, which they evaluated. My understanding was it was super competitive at that stage from UCL. There was a lot of people applying. I don't know exactly how many, but it was yeah, I think it was that was well, every stage is tricky to get through, but I think it was quite tricky to get to that first one just because of the volume of people and the limited amount of space you had to make your case.
But presumably moving forward, Sarah, there's no institutional limitation on the number of open fellowship applications from any particular institution, is there?
I don't believe so, no. Because it's all permanently open, I think they will just sort of like, they will just appear, you know, as and when they are ready.
Okay, excellent. So Jamie.
Yeah, I was just going to say there was some competition. Sussex is a much smaller institution than UCL, probably slightly less computational groups, but I think there were at least 4 or 5 internal applications. Yeah, our process was, I think, a bit simpler. I definitely had nothing resembling an outline proposal at that point.
Okay, so move on to the next question then. So this is a tricky one. Are university-based RSEs cheaper or better in any other way than external consultants? What a question. Right, so who would like to have a go at that then? Fellows, imagine it's you're in your interview and this is a question that's come up by one of the interviewers. I expect a good answer. Andrew.
Yeah, well, I was going to answer it from the other side. So having sort of worked within a department and applied for funding and all that kind of thing, I think the department would see an RSE embedded within a school, say, as advantageous because they can load you up with a bunch of other stuff to do, as well as the research software engineering that they're paying you to do. And I think you can sell that in lots of ways. So what I mean by that is that, you maybe have teaching responsibilities or training responsibilities within the school as well, whereas from an external consultant, presumably you wouldn't be getting that. And when it came to the application, my application and so on, because I have a lot of teaching responsibilities and other grants on which I'm funded, I could only apply for 60% of my time to be devoted to this fellowship. But I was able to sell that as an advantage because I was able to say, well, the other 40% of the time you're getting my time for free, because everything that I'm doing will also be contributing both to the research project that I'm working on, but in terms of the science that I'm doing, but also in terms of training. I'd be sort of delivering training and teaching, most of which is around this kind of software engineering idea. So I think that there are lots of advantages to having university-based RSEs, either sort of as in a sort of RSE group or embedded within research groups and that kind of thing, because there's so much more that you can bring if you're part of that sort of close-knit group.
Anybody else like to have a comment on that one? Peter, yes.
Just to say that I've done some external consultancy, and the university-based thing was a lot cheaper than what I charged for the to be an external one. But that was with an RSE hat on, so it's. I think one of the other advantages is that you're there, and access to RSE is a really useful thing to be able to somebody just knock on my office door and say, hey, can I just chat to you about this thing? Right, I think that's harder to get with them than having an external consultant.
I was going to say that, so external consultants perhaps come in and develop software and then leave, but the fellowships are about developing people, not just the fellows themselves, but the people around them. And when you're embedded in that environment, it has a knock-on effect of developing the researchers that you're working with and the other RSEs that you may kind of support directly or indirectly. So
yeah, there's so much teaching.
Financial, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's so much teaching I do outside of teaching.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a big advantage.
So I think what we'll do then is we will make this the last question. Yeah. So how do the fellows plan to contribute to the RSE community? Will you be involved in the society or organising future conferences? So maybe Ed.
So yeah, I didn't stand for election this time, but yeah, definitely I'm enthusiastic to look for opportunities to contribute. So be that joining next year's conference committee or standing for election at the next round next year, or that kind of thing. Certainly, absolutely.
Fantastic. How about Heather? So I know that you're doing a huge amount of community-based work with your fellowship. So not necessarily the society, but community-based work.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely the sort of thing that I would enjoy doing, but obviously I've got to be careful not to spread myself too thin. So I think it's sort of inevitable that I will be involved in some way in sorts of conference type activity or workshop type activity, but probably trying to sort of link it to other things that I'm doing in the R projects.
And how about Donal then? So I know you've suggested that you'd like to build more of an RSE presence in Northern Ireland. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And that was one of the, I think, strengths of my application was that there is no RSE community. So not only would I be starting this within my centre and then within Queen's, but within Northern Ireland and then potentially the island of Ireland as well, as there's no RSE within the island of Ireland, avoiding all the politics of that. But that's, I mean, I think that was one of the key strengths. And one of the questions we were asked to kind of consider in our internal round was, what contribution will you make to the university, but also to the field of RSE? And that'll be one of the key contributions. And then we've plans. I'm a member of the society, but then we've kind of plans for applying to try and hold future conferences and become RSE leaders and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's kind of baby steps at the moment and getting it taken seriously within the university. And then that's our kind of 5-year plan, I suppose.
Fantastic. Right. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of our panel then. We're kind of vastly and quickly running out of time. And I can see that there's still a whole bunch of questions there that people would like to ask. So now that you've met the fellows, I would say, please track them down in Gathertown, run around and see if you can spot them, track them down and ask them some more questions or some follow-up questions individually. If you've got questions about the Open Fellowship Scheme, about eligibility, then again, reach out to Sarah directly, EPSRC. I'm sure she won't mind if you've got particular questions, and if she gets a lot of the same questions, and we will endeavour to share those via the society and make sure that people can see all of those. So I'd just like to thank all of the panel then, so all of the fellows, congratulations again. Thank you once again, Sarah, for coming along. EPSRC being such a fantastic supporter of the RSE community, and we really do appreciate you coming along to our events. I think at this stage what we're going to do now then is stop for 5 minutes and have a refreshment break, and when we get back it will be the launch of our elections, which in fact will be an opportunity to hear the pitches from the candidates. So thank you very much, and see you back in 5 minutes. James, are you there? We can't hear you.
I am indeed, and I guess
Fantastic.
I'm back now. I know most have, but if any of the candidates have not yet been added to the panel, please could you raise your hands in Zoom, and Chris will promote you to the panel. Thank you. So then, are we ready to record? We are recording, good. So this is, or was going to be, the launch of the Society Trustee elections for 2021. However, there is a slight change of plan this year. So as Paul mentioned this morning, we have 6 vacancies, usual, half the board retires every year because of the 2-year period. And we've had 1 trustee stand down as well, retire during their period. So we don't have enough candidates to run a full election. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the schedule as close to the plan as we can. What we're going to do today is we're going to continue with the candidate pitches, but we're going to treat them a bit more as like introductions to the people who are going to be trustees next year, for the next 2 years. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, there will be the formal announcement of the AGM. The AGM will be on the 30th of September at the end of SeptembRSE, but the formal announcement will be the time at which we say, okay, if you're a member at the time of the formal announcement, you have a vote in this. So instead of an election, what we're going to do is we're going to have a vote at the AGM of the members for whether these candidates should be confirmed as trustees or not. So it's still a decision by the members of the society, even though it's not an election format anymore. The voting process, again, Paul mentioned this briefly this morning, because we now have some votes in our AGM, and to address some points that were raised about how the voting worked last year, what we're going to do is tomorrow, when we make the formal announcement of the AGM, we're going to take a snapshot of the membership list. So people in that list who are members at 12 o'clock tomorrow will be eligible to vote at the AGM. Shortly before the AGM, we'll send all of the eligible members a voting token, which will be hashed from your email address, to ensure that the votes are anonymous but able to be verified. We'll share the voting form at the start of the AGM, and as other things are happening during the AGM, we'll count the valid votes, and we'll announce the results of all of the votes that we're taking at the AGM within the AGM itself. So it's not like we've done previously where the election of trustees runs on for a month after the AGM. It'll all be finished at the AGM. So the candidates we have are Sam, Matt, who's been a trustee for the last 2 years as well as wanting to stay, Fergus, Mark, Holger, and Jamie. So I will hand over to Sam then. If I just exit this. Sam's slide is here. There we go. Take it away, Sam.
I was muted, right, classic. So hi, I'm Sam Mangham and I'm an RSE from the University of Southampton. My background is radiation physics, but as an RSE, I'm a generalist and I've worked across the spectrum from arts to mathematics, no pun intended there. So to jump straight in, I've been involved with a wide range of community and outreach events in the past. So my outreach work has involved things like being a charity ambassador for Data Dive run by DataKind, helping charities shape their data into clear questions. I've worked arranging speakers and venues and timings for the local Pint of Science for a couple of years, as well as teching for it when it went online, along with a whole bunch of other outreach events like talking to the general public at planetariums and fantarelas, festivals, that kind of thing. I've been involved in more RSE facing communities as well. So I've been doing administrative and promotional work to set up a Southampton branch of the PyData community that we hope to launch post-pandemic. And I've also been involved in setting up the infrastructure for our local sort of reboot of our research software community. And I've also been involved in setting up and organizing and running sort of software carpentry sessions, as I'm a qualified software carpentry instructor. So I think my community and event organization experience, along with the project management skills that I've learned in my role as an RSE, would basically allow me to contribute effectively as a trustee of the Society of Research Software Engineering. I'd like to be a trustee because I think I've benefited greatly from the RSE communities, I'm sure that we all have, and I'd just like to give back to it by helping it keep running along. So as a trustee, I wouldn't have any sweeping goals to change society or anything. I think we can all agree that the previous committees have done absolutely brilliant work setting it up and keeping it running. So instead, I'd just like to work on keeping the society running effectively, growing sustainably, and ensuring it stays like an open and welcoming community. And I believe in terms of roles, I'll be most of things like the secretary, conference, or outreach and membership roles. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sam. So next we have Matt. Matt, are you there? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Can now, yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. Volumes are going up and down. Okay, thank you. I will try and keep this short. My name is Matt Williams. I'm a research software engineer at the University of Bristol, have been coming on for 5 years now. I've been involved in the RSE community pretty much since I started at the University of Bristol. So I was involved in the conference committee for 2 of our now 4 conferences that we've run. And 2 years ago, I was elected as one of the trustees of the society. I took on the role of working with the previous treasurer, Simon Hetrick, to learn the ropes. And for the last year, I've been leading that role along with my vice treasurer, Kirsty. So we're trying to keep continuity to make sure that the society has funds and money to keep on supporting the things that we want to keep on doing. And I think what we all want to make sure we can do is keep the society running, keep it working, make sure that we've got that baseline of everything great so that we can build on that and start getting grander, larger ideas. We've been working to support events for the last few years, and I want to continue to scale this out and do bigger and better things. I've been working on various small bits and large bits in my role as treasurer and just various trustee roles, so particularly around compliance and constitutional changes. And I was working with James on the election process, but since I was running, I felt that I should hand the reins over to not bias things. Most of all, I just want to keep society running as a trustee to make sure that we can keep on supporting all of you members, RSEs, far and wide, both in the UK and internationally, because I think it's a really, really useful thing that we're doing. It's really powerful to have this opportunity. So I just want to keep on doing my bit to help all of you. And that's me.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we have Fergus. You there, Fergus?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Brilliant. Hi, everyone. I'm Fergus. I'm an RSE at Oxford, and I helped co-found the RSE group in Oxford in 2018. I'm very excited about the opportunity to become a society trustee. So I've got plenty of experience running a variety of sort of large societies and organizations. And I think that experience means I have a pretty good idea kind of what I'm getting myself into. And it's certainly a commitment that I'm very happy to make. Given my prior experience, which has largely been on the kind of financial side of things, I think that helping look after the society's finances would be a sort of natural fit for me. But I'm absolutely willing to get stuck in with whatever the society needs and whatever I think I could contribute usefully to. In terms of what I'd like to achieve as a trustee, a particular concern of mine kind of going forward is developing sustainable career tracks for early career RSEs in academia. And I think the society has the potential to play a really large kind of advocacy role in that space. And so from that point of view, I think the bigger the society is, the better. And so as a kind of a short-term thing that I'd really like to kind of get stuck into helping out with is growing the society's membership, getting the society as big as it sort of sustainably can be. And then hopefully the society will have kind of as much clout as possible when it comes to kind of advocacy in the space of RSE. And finally, just to conclude really quickly, is that the sort of overarching reason that I'm standing to be a trustee is because I just really believe in the aims of the society, and I'm kind of ready and able to really get stuck in with it. So that's me.
Thank you, Fergus. Next, we have Mark, who has sent in a video. So let's see if my audio is working.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm really sorry I can't make it to this meeting. I'd agreed to go on a walking holiday with a friend actually a few weeks ago, so I'm on leave. But yeah, thank you very much for your time anyway. I'm an RSE at Durham, part of the Advanced Research Computing Group. Yeah, and I'm standing for trustee of the society, and I kind of just want to give back to the society really, because I've benefited hugely from the community in the past, mainly in terms of finding my job in the first place, i.e. just being told, hey, look, this is a job application that you should maybe do. My background is, well, I've done a master's in computer science at Imperial, and before that I actually started in the humanities. So I have a kind of fairly broad experience, I guess, And yeah, while I was in the humanities, I especially focused on social theory. So I'm quite interested in bringing together different disciplines and kind of promoting that work in across all areas of the university. Yeah, I'm really excited by the society's aims, and I'm keen to contribute to it going forward. I think I wrote down some ideas of potential avenues for that could be explored by the society in the future. For example, around helping young RSEs, but more fundamentally and beyond grand visions, I'm keen to get stuck in with the everyday tasks that stem from running a charity. So yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark, from your holiday. So next on my list, we have Holger, but I don't see you in the panelists. So if you're in the session, please could you raise your hand so we can promote you to the panelists, and we'll go on to Jamie, who I think you wanted to screen share yourself, didn't you? Didn't want to slide.
I don't have any slides. I haven't prepared anything. I thought I figured I'd...
Well, I can't hear you very well.
Oh, sorry. Give me 2 seconds and I'll try plugging in this. How is that now? Is that any better?
I'm afraid I still can't hear you.
So there's someone else talking from what I can make out. Let me try. How about now?
I can hear you both very faintly. I wonder if this is at my end. So if you two can hear each other, please carry on.
I can't hear anyone but yourself, James.
No, lots of people in the chat saying it's very faint as well. From both of you as well, Holger. I did hear you then, and your audio was very faint too.
Right. That's very unfortunate. Okay, let's see if I can.
Matt says that he
up my input level. Does that work better?
There we go. I can hear you clearly.
Okay. Good. I'll go back to screen share then. I can find my slides. Here they are. Okay. All right. So my name is Holger Schulz. I'm an RSE in Durham. I've been working in this RSE role ever since I've got my PhD. So I got my education in Germany, in Dresden and Berlin, and then I moved to Durham to work in a role as an RSE. So at the time it was called physicist programmer, but in modern language you would probably call it a embedded RSE role, working on physics simulation software here. And then I went to the US for 3 years to work at the National Lab in a scientific computing group. And it was there where the role was more of a mixture of half was embedded, the half was central RSE, and I was exposed to more HPC centric work, in particular performance optimization, to get large-scale software simulations on supercomputers running. Yeah, and that got me hooked on that kind of work. And then I moved back to Durham, and since last year I've been working in a embedded RSE role in a computer science group within an Excalibur project. So it's all very HPC centric with accelerators and all that. So what is my connection with and what are my aims for the RSE community? So I've so within particle physics, there was kind of a peer group, nothing of the scale as this community, but it was something like that called the HEP Software Foundation. And so I was actively participating that, essentially raising issues with the career prospects for people who, like me, had more of a focus on software rather than the physics itself. And yeah, so I helped write strategy documents and software as well. So then after moving back to Durham, I was exposed to the UKRI landscape due to the cluster competition they run. I was managing a team of students there. And so within my current job role, I have lots of contact work and exchange with most of the central RSEs at Durham. And so what I see this as an opportunity to form something, to form this job and being able to establish a more software-centric career path in research and essentially allow others to enjoy this kind of work as much as I enjoy it. Yeah, that's me. Thanks.
Thank you, Holger. In that case, Jamie, you are last but not least.
Can you hear me fine just now?
Yes, can hear you clearly now. Thank you.
Oh, Zoom is not my friend today. Okay, yes. So
I'm Jamie. I'm a research software engineer in UCL as part of their centralized research software development group. I've got a background in mathematics and astrophysics. Did my PhD at the University of Glasgow, where I currently live. I'm a big fan of GPU acceleration, particularly in higher level languages.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jamie, but your audio is quiet again, and someone has said in chat as well, so it's not just me. It was clear, and then it went.
This seems.
Someone says try turning off auto adjust volume. And yeah, as soon as you said Zoom is not my friend, Zoom was not your friend.
Audio. This might be very loud. Is that too loud?
Has that improved?
Yes, that's good again.
Okay, yeah, it does seem like Zoom is doing something terrible. That's not too loud or anything.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, fine. So yeah, essentially just technical background. I'm a big fan of GPU stuff, particularly in languages, higher level languages that help to kind of democratize access to HPC. But in terms of the RSE movement, I've been a big part of, not a big part, I must say, I've been a part of this big movement for a few years, and only recently become a fully fledged, fully employed RSE. So I'm just looking to contribute further to the society. I have a lot of experience in representation at the University of Glasgow, both of student and staff through the Student Reps Council and UCU as well. And so I want to use that experience, the kind of experience of sitting on various committees and boards and writing policy and contributing to community building activities and this kind of thing. I'm just going to use that experience as well as other experience as many other trustees have experience doing outreach and organizing events and all this kind of thing. So I think that kind of is where my skill set lies, that kind of representational and organizational in terms of events. I think that would be where I'd be able to most easily contribute directly. But yeah, ultimately I'm just very passionate about the work that the RSE society does in creating a community, not just for RSEs, but for people who kind of don't fit the mold, don't fit into the story, but still can, you know, fit into this community in a really, really lovely way. So just being able to contribute that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Jamie. We managed to overcome the perils of technology there. So if I share my screen again. Society of RSE has started screen sharing. Would I be? Oh, yeah, that's okay. We're going to questions, and the things I was going to say are pretty much correlated with the questions anyway, so that's fine. So I was just going to say there are other ways to get involved available other than standing as a candidate to be trustee. So in particular, the Society is planning to launch working groups in the coming year, which will be a good way for people to join and help the Society, but not with the sort of the commitment of becoming a trustee for 2 years. You can join a working group on a particular task or a particular domain, and then get some work done there. We have an event funding policy, which has been running for about a year now. So if you've got any ideas for events that you want to run, then please do let us know. And of course, if you want to get involved with the Society and help run it in the future, please do consider standing yourself as a candidate next year. So in that case, let's go on to questions. So these are mostly process questions, which is what I was expecting. So first question, are candidates applying to specific roles? So that's something we'd considered, and it's something that had been proposed in the past. We felt it was probably better not to do that, at least until we become quite a bit larger, because there's substantial risk of losing someone who would be very good at being a trustee, but they were maybe the second best or judged to be the second best at the particular role that they nominated themselves for. So we're definitely trying to get all of the experience in that we can, and looking through what the candidates have said in their nomination things, which we'll be publishing tomorrow on our website. I think they do all have quite a lot to contribute to the Society. Second process question. So what happens if the membership doesn't approve the candidates? I'm very much hoping this won't happen. I'm confident that the membership will, but obviously that is a decision of the membership. If the members decide not to approve these candidates, we can continue operating with 5 trustees. I believe that is just quorate. However, we will be trying as soon as possible to run some more nominations, or possibly, if we have to, directly appoint some trustees, which we can do for a period of up to a year until the next AGM. So we have some backup plans, but we're expecting not to need them. I do think all of these trustees have a lot to, all of these potential trustees have a lot to contribute. So I'm confident that the members will agree there.
James, do you mind if I just briefly jump in?
Yes,
as
of course,
well?
go ahead.
So it's Paul Richmond here. I was just going to say that we're very reliant on our community in terms of getting that vote passed. It's something that we need, but don't forget that as trustees, we have all voted to put that resolution in place. So it's something that the trustees very much want to be approved. So we've voted internally as trustees to put that forward. So we're, unless there's some reason that we're unaware of, we don't necessarily expect that not to pass.
Thank you, Paul. So shadow trustees, that's not something we'd considered in a strict sense, I guess, but the working groups that we're hoping to run over the next year will allow people to come in, interact with the society, get involved with particular tasks. So for instance, it could be a working group on setting up regional RSE communities. So you could join that working group, help to set up these regional communities. And then once the setup is done, the working group can be dissolved, or maybe can sort of go into maintenance mode. So it's a much lower commitment role. And then if you do want to get more involved in future, then would be time to consider standing as a trustee. I believe this session is scheduled to end at 3:30. So what I was going to suggest for questions for candidates particularly is, most of them will be around for, I imagine, substantial parts of this conference. So please do grab any of them in the nice GatherTown conference venue, or via Slack, whatever format. I may see if they want to share an email address or something to contact, but that would obviously be up to them whether they're happy to do so. But if you do have any questions for any of these candidates, please do get in touch with them. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you,
James.
James.
Thank you to the candidates as well.
Thank you, James. As James said, basically this session is due to finish at 3:30. What we have now is basically 30 minutes where we will be around within the GatherTown Virtual Conference Centre to basically network. So please don't just all run away and turn off Zoom. Do like meet in the garden, meet in the cafe, meet in the various other places, or look for Oracle Cryptic Code treasure hunt coins. Form teams to do that. Yeah, the Zen Garden is on the bottom left. And do that for the next half an hour and chat to people. And then tomorrow, what we have at 11 o'clock, that's when we have our first poster session. So that's going to start with some lightning talks, a bit of a summary about the posters, and then some sort of networking and then things after that. And then tomorrow afternoon, and this is where I should have had my timetable directly above in front of me, so I remembered what was on. What are we doing tomorrow afternoon? Just checking it out. This is where I should have been more prepared. Tomorrow, what we're doing after the poster session, in the afternoon, we have the first of our presentation sessions. So this is going to be at 2 o'clock till 3:30. And we have 3 talks: how to set up a Python web application, Django beyond the tutorial, what's the deal with Python wheels, and GPU accelerated spectral methods in Python, a case study. So enjoy the networking now, and hopefully enjoy the talks and things tomorrow. But otherwise, thank you for coming today and for making SeptembRSE's first day a massive success. Enjoy. Thank you. Bye-bye.